Hey everybody, Brian from Witch Doctor here. Welcome, thank you for tuning in. We had an interesting discussion on a forum not too long ago about the ejector in a bolt. So if you look carefully, there's a little piece of the bolt face here called the ejector. It's this little pin that basically, after this part called the extractor grabs onto your brass, pulls it out, this little pin then has a spring that flicks that piece of brass out. And so we can flick it in whatever direction you specify. So if you have a left load where you load the round in on the left and a right eject, they will put that puppy on the left hand side, so then it springs the brass out to the right. Okay, so let's take a piece of brass and run it in there. So with the so we put a piece of brass in, okay, and then your extractor pulls the brass out, has a little piece there that gets around the rim of your brass, and then your ejector does that, pushes it out with spring tension. Okay, pretty simple. Most ejectors I've seen are pretty much the same or very similar in design. This is a Borden Rimrock BRMXD action, so this is a Borden action. I have trimmed the spring on this ejector so that it kind of ejects, just right off of the rifle. And then I put a little carpeting thingy down there to let the brass fall on. So anyway, there was discussion about this mechanism somehow interfering with precision, that it pushes the brass, because it is spring tensioned. I mean, you can completely feel it. Put a piece of brass in there, and it is hard to push down. You can definitely see how it pushes the brass off to the side. Okay, so anyway, so some discussion about that. The relevance of that nowadays with these types of actions, the high tolerances, people bumping their shoulders 1.5 thousandths, 2 thousandths maximum. How much is it going to push? A lot of people jamming their bullets into the lands. At that point, does it really matter? Tight chamber tolerances. Certainly, you've seen some of the testing I've done on chamber dimensions and how having a tight throat chamber could correct whatever, if there's a high degree of run out in a bullet, for example. So anyway, I'm not sure, whether pulling this thing out is going to add any benefit to precision. So what I ended up doing is just that. I took the tools to remove the ejector, which is a hammer, one of these. This one is a 1 16th Tecton punch. I don't know if 1 16th. 1 16th seems to be perfect for this size pin. And then one of these, it's a thing where you can put your bolt down, and then also a little dump there to dump the little pin, the spring, and the ejector pin into here to kind of keep it all in one place, which is very handy. Anyway, so that's what I did. I took my 30 BR. I've used this in previous testing, but I'll give you a quick breakdown. It is a tight neck chamber. It is on a Borden Rimrock BRMXD, a 1.25 straight tapered barrel that finishes at, I believe, 24 inches. This is the DSB tuner is in the front. This is the rifle I used to do tuner testing with, the DSB tuner. And then a March Highmaster 10x60 with burst scope. And I was shooting these excellent PRP Voodoo bullets. These particular ones shoot extremely well out of this rifle. 115 grain, 7.0 jive bullet, top quality bullets, shooting extremely precise, and very little lot-to-lot variation. It's a flat-based bullet. Anyway, pretty typical for 30 BRs to run flat-faced bullets, but that and then N130 was the powder. And essentially, the way I load this is to take the bullet and seat it 20 thousandths into the land. So whatever my touch point measure is, I extend my seater 20 more thousandths, and I seat them that way. And what happens with that is when I go to chamber it, you can kind of feel it requires a little extra push to get that round in, but it is firmly into the rifling at that point. And then of course I have my Seb Max rest, I have my Lindsay rear rest, and it's a Macmillan heavy stock, so it's extremely heavy. It's definitely over 20 pounds. And so essentially took that to the range and shot several 5-shot groups, which I'll go over here in a second. Okay, before we get to the data, let's just show you really briefly how you do this. Pretty simple. Pull your bolt, and you'll find the ejector there on that side. Find the little pin holding it in place. Get your punch. Line it up. Get your hammer. I usually take a little hammer. It doesn't need a whole lot of force. And then well, actually, this direction will be a lot easier for me to do at this angle. Okay. There we go. And so the pin falls out. Again, this is why I really like this nifty little tool, because I can drop all the little things in there. I keep the punch in because the punch is holding the spring right now. If I pull this punch, that that ejector pin is going to go flying. So what I do is I put my finger over the ejector, and then I pull that, and then I slowly let it out. Okay, so there it is. It's that simple. And then I dump it all in there and keep it all in a place where it's not going to fall over, and I'm going to have to go looking for things. So there you go. So the bolt face now is free of the ejector, and as you can see now, it doesn't have any spring tension pushing it anywhere. It just stays in place just like that. Okay, so there you go. It's pretty much that simple. Easy to do. So I essentially did this at the range where I shot a 5-shot group with it in, pulled it out, shot a 5-shot group or two, put it back in, shot a 5-shot group or two, took it out, etc. So that's simple. Just did it right at the range, no problem. All right, this is our favorite part. Let's look at some targets. Okay, so on the left here are all of the 5-shot groups when the ejector was in. On the right here are all the 5-shot groups where the ejector was out. Okay, so the first one with the ejector in shot a 0. That's really good. I think I'm going to keep this charge. This charge I think is 35.2, which actually was my hot temperature charge. My cool temperature charge was 35.6, but I like how 35.2 performed. It was 44 degrees. That's about the temperature, maybe kind of on average, we're going to have over the next couple months. So I'm just going to keep this charge. And so it shot a 0. And then I removed the ejector, and it showed kind of an out of tune pattern. Not seriously out of tune. Typically what I'll see are these slanted, verticals or horizontals. They're slanted verticals. When something is kind of trying to come into tune. So that was concerning right off the bat. Went back, I put it back in, and then shot another 3, which I wasn't happy with. And then I think I loaded 5 more with it in, shot another 5-shot group, and that one ended up being a 1.1565. And then I took the ejector out, shot a 1. I thought, cool. Shot a 0.228, and then I think I put it back in 0.269, and then took it out 0.247. So basically, this pattern of groups is pretty consistent with my original tuning of this rifle, which is that it aggregates in the low 2s. And you know, over the course of firing it several times, that's about where it ags, is low 2s, with periodic 0s and a handful of 1s. So basically it was behaving kind of like it normally does. I had no concerns at that point. I could have shot more 5-shot groups, but I'm telling you right now, given what I know about statistics and data and testing, I was happy with, you know, just shooting 4 5-shot groups in each condition. I kind of eyeballed the groups at one point and thought, I'm not going to probably see anything significantly different in this test. And that's exactly what the data analysis showed when I ran the data, is that with the ejector in, the average, the aggregate was 0.2103. With it out, it was 0.229. So, you know, you can look at that and go, boy, even with it out, it got a little worse. But statistically speaking, the probability that there was a meaningful difference in precision was pretty low. I don't think it was that significant of a finding. So anyway, essentially with the ejector in or out, didn't make any difference. One thing that I want to point out, though, that does make a big difference for me is when I was shooting this test, you know, you have your ejector out. What ends up happening when you have it out, okay, I have it out right now. Let's put a piece of brass in, chamber it, okay, fire, and then you pull your brass. Your brass does not fling out, again, because your ejector, the very thing that's supposed to eject it here with spring tension, is not in. So your brass just sits there. So essentially, every shot that I took without the ejector in, I had to sort of kick out the brass piece with my finger and then load the cartridge. And what ended up, load a, you know, a loaded cartridge, a loaded bullet. What ended up happening was that slowed down my shooting string. It made me have to sort of focus on knocking the piece of brass out rather than, you know, running a quick 5-shot group, and was kind of disruptive to my whole shooting routine. And it was difficult too to kind of focus out, you know, on flags and other indicators of wind when I'm sitting there, you know, having to worry about flinging out a piece of brass. So not really ideal situation to have the ejector out, and certainly according to this data, it does not help at all to take the ejector out. There's no added benefit to that. What about ballistics? Cool enough, I took my Garmin out again. I've put some videos up about the Garmin Zero C1 Pro, and about specifically how it calculates standard deviation different than a lab radar. But anyway, took it out for some more testing and picked up, you know, all the velocities. Having the ejector in, the velocity was on average 2976.1. With the ejector out, it was 2976.35, which was no difference essentially. So the velocity was exactly the same. The standard deviation of the velocities for in 5.75, out 5.825, no statistically significant difference. They were essentially the same. And same thing with extreme spread. With it in 16.8, with it out 15.88, no statistically significant difference. So essentially you get no benefit in any kind of ballistic indicator or precision by pulling that ejector out. Again, you know, maybe if it's a super old rifle and that ejector is poorly built, or it doesn't have a tight, you know, a tight neck chamber, or you know, a tight throat, or, you know, whatever is characteristic of this rifle that may not be characteristic of you know, a different rifle, there may be an effect. But certainly for this modern type of rifle that is set up for bench rest shooting, zero benefit. In fact, it just having to shoot it by flicking out that brass was a distraction. So I'd say it's actually a bad thing to pull that thing out. It may, unless you're really good at, you know, tuning out having to punch brass out, it could be a major distraction. Anyway, so thanks for tuning in. Please subscribe, like, and share. Also, please join my Patreon page. Again, we have just a really good learning environment there. It's free of all the sort of keyboard warriors that you see on a lot of other venues and forums and things like that. So the discussions are generally very productive, and highly recommend that you join. Okay, everyone, take care and happy 2024. Hope it's going well for you.